Right now, on any quiet morning, hundreds of thousands of Britons are logging into their SIPP, glancing at a cash balance, ticking gently upward at around 4%, and feeling something that has become genuinely rare in this country. They feel safe. They got frightened out of the stock market, and they did what felt sensible. They moved everything into cash. And now, at the start of every financial quarter, the number is a little bigger than the last time they looked. So they sit back and think they are winning. But here is the uncomfortable truth. While you were busy feeling safe, HMRC quietly changed the rules of the room you are standing in. Nobody sent you a letter. That growing cash balance is not building your retirement. It is walking you, one interest payment at a time, straight into a tax ambush that did not exist 5 years ago. The safety you feel is a mirage, and by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why the safest looking pound in your pension is often the most expensive one you own. For 40 years, retirement in Britain ran on one magic number, 25%. Whatever you built, a quarter of it came out tax-free, simple, generous, open-ended. It did not matter how big your pot grew, the tax-free slice grew right along with it. That number is now dead. It has been quietly replaced by a fixed wall called the Lump Sum Allowance, the LSA, and that wall sits at £268,275. Now notice something about that figure, because everything today depends on it. It does not move. It is frozen solid. It does not rise with inflation. It does not rise with your pot, and it does not care how hard your cash is working. For 40 years, 25% was a percentage that scaled with you. In 2026, it is a ceiling that does not. Picture your SIPP as a tree. For your entire working life, you were told the same thing over and over. Grow it. Taller, wider, heavier, more is always better. So, you fed it, you protected it, and you watched it grow. But the government has now lowered a sheet of glass over that tree at a fixed height. That glass is the LSA. And here is the part nobody explains. When you keep your tree planted in high-interest cash, it does not stop growing, but the glass does not move an inch. So every new branch, every bit of interest you were so proud of, is crushed flat against that ceiling and harvested. Above the glass, growth does not become more tax-free money for you. It becomes taxable income. You are no longer growing a bigger tree for your family. You are growing a richer harvest for HMRC, and you are the one doing all the watering. Let me put real numbers on it, because this is where it stops being a theory. Take a couple in the home counties with a combined pot of £500,000. Call it £250,000 each. They played it safe, sat the whole thing in cash, and they are earning around 4%. That is roughly £20,000 of growth every single year, landing without a flicker of stock market risk. It sounds wonderful, but that £20,000 is not tax-free money. Read that again. Only the slice that fits under the LSA ever comes out clean. Every pound of cash interest above it is taxable income, taxed the moment they draw it, stacked on top of their state pension and any other income they have coming in. Compound 5 or 6 years of that growth together, and they have quietly added more than £100,000 of purely taxable money to the pile. For a higher earner, that forced growth pushes them clean past the higher rate line at £50,270, and for the wealthiest home counties savers, toward the additional rate trap that begins at £125,140. They did not take on a scrap more risk. They just handed the taxman a bigger cut and called it safety. And this is where it turns quietly brutal. The thresholds that decide when 40% and 45% tax kick in are frozen, not until 2028, as many people still believe. That freeze was extended at the autumn budget of 2025 and locked into the Finance Act of 2026. Those thresholds were frozen all the way out to April 2031. That is fiscal drag, and it is the most powerful tax in Britain precisely because nobody ever votes for it. Your cash grows in pounds. The thresholds stand dead still. So year after year, a larger slice of your safe growth is dragged up into the 40% band, and for the biggest pots, into the 45% band. Nothing about your behavior changed. The wall simply refused to move while your cash kept climbing toward it. The cash feels like it is protecting you. What it is actually doing is promoting you, silently, into a higher tax bracket you never asked to join. Now hold that 4% taxable cash growth right next to the alternative, because the contrast is the whole game. Inside a stocks and shares ISA, money has historically grown at closer to 7% over the long run. And here is the part that matters most. That growth is shielded. When it finally comes out the other side, it comes out with no income tax at all. None. So compare the two roads, honestly. Cash inside your pension, around 4%, and every pound above the wall is taxed on the way out. Equities inside an ISA, closer to 7%, and it comes out completely clean. Do you see the trap? SAFE is charging you twice. Once in the growth you never earned, and again in tax on the small amount of growth you did. Think of it as a bridge. You are pushing a heavy cart of gold toward the retirement bridge, and there is a guard standing on it. His name is HMRC. He tells you the rule of the crossing, and it never changes. You may carry one bucket of gold across for free. That bucket is your LSA, and everything else in that cart gets taxed. Now, keeping your money in high-interest cash does one thing only. It piles more gold into the cart. But the free bucket never gets any bigger. It is fixed at £268,275, and it stays there. So all that extra interest you were quietly celebrating every quarter, you are not carrying it across the bridge for yourself. You are working harder, loading the cart heavier and heavier, purely to pay a larger toll the moment you reach the other side. And if you sit with that on any quiet morning, at the start of a fresh financial quarter, a cold feeling settles in. Your SAFE strategy has a silent partner you never agreed to take on. He puts in no money of his own. He takes on no risk whatsoever. But every single time your cash earns a little more, he holds out his hand and takes a guaranteed, growing cut of it. That partner is the Treasury, and on a frozen allowance, in a frozen threshold world, he is the only person at the table who is guaranteed to win. So, what does taking back control actually look like? It is a deliberate shift from cash-heavy to tax-aware, and it comes down to 3 moves. First, stop treating the cash in your pension as a safe harbor, and start seeing it for what it truly is, an unsheltered, taxable asset. Because on the way out, that is exactly how HMRC will treat it. Second, move your growth into wrappers that genuinely shield it, using your ISA allowance every single year, so future growth escapes income tax entirely instead of piling up against a frozen wall. Third, if you are still contributing, use gross pension contributions deliberately to manage your taxable income and stay below the tapering thresholds, instead of letting fiscal drag decide your bracket for you. This was never about chasing risk. It is about controlling exactly where and when your money is taxed. And there is one final wall coming that makes hoarding cash more dangerous than ever: the success tax. For decades, a pension was the single best way to pass wealth down to your family, because unused funds sat neatly outside your estate. That door is closing under the Finance Act of 2026 from the 6th of April 2027. Most unused pension funds and death benefits are pulled straight back into your estate for inheritance tax, and any tax-free death benefit is still capped by the lump sum and death benefit allowance, £1,073,100, which, like everything else in this story, does not move. So think about who this punishes hardest. Not the reckless, the saver who did everything right, who built the biggest, safest cash pot they could, specifically to leave it to their children. That is precisely the person the new rules target. In 2026, saving too much in the wrong place has quietly become its own kind of tax. Here is the shift you have to make. Wealth in Britain is no longer a game of growth, it is a game of architecture. The question is no longer, how big is my number? It is, where does my money live, and who gets taxed when it finally moves? A cash pile pressed hard against a frozen ceiling grows for the Treasury. A properly structured plan, tax-aware, wrapped, and built with every one of these walls in mind, grows for your family. True freedom, in 2026, is not a bigger balance on a screen. It is a pension engineered so that when the money finally moves, it moves to the people you love, and not to the guard standing on the bridge. If you learned something, like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.